And we are live. Welcome, guys, to another episode of The Dating Game with Troy Francis. Myself, Troy Francis, 10 years, a dating coach, 10 years in the trenches of helping dudes all over the planet increase the potency of their love lives with some of the beautiful women across this wonderful world that we all inhabit. And through that process, learning a lot about what high value men value in girls and in the women they want to date. And also, obviously, learning a hell of a lot too about female nature and what it is that females are looking for in dating as well. And let me tell you, it is a jungle out there at the moment in 2024. And the dating apps, Instagram, sugar dating, OnlyFans, all of this kind of stuff, it's going nuts out there at the moment, and we need to find a way through. And that's exactly what this channel is about, helping you to get better outcomes in dating by studying what the hell's going on out there and figuring it out, and also giving actionable advice to you about how you can best navigate what's going on. Now, on that note, we are scheduled to have a guest today. We've got a lovely lady called Faye who is meant to be joining us in order to talk about an issue that she's got in her dating life. So she is in her 30s and she is looking to find a nice Christian man to settle down with. Having said that, we have been having some technical issues on Zoom, so whether she is able to join or not remains to be seen. Hopefully she will. But what we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to probably we're going to look at some reactions. Okay, I'm going to do some reactions to. I'm going to look at a Brett Cooper video that just came out about the ick, and we're going to have a look at that and see whether. See what she's talking about there, because I think that sounds like a pretty interesting thing. So let's have a look at that, and then if our guest is able to join us, then we'll bring her in and we'll talk to her about what's going on in terms of her dating life. So without further ado, and by the way, guys, anybody who's got any questions, anything that you want to ask, anything you want to cover, observations, etc., put them into the chat and we will get to them as we go through this stream. Super chats are now available on this channel, so please show your support for what we're doing here. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you very much to Marriage Causes Divorce, who's coming with a £5 super chat already. Thank you very much, sir. He's been very supportive since the beginning of this channel, and he says, why are they seeking a husband? Do they actually want the man, or do they just want the diamond ring, IG pics, house, kids, and alimony? Which is it? Well, hopefully we'll find out when we can get the guest in, but in the meantime, let's have a look at this new Brett Cooper video, and we're going to see what the vibe is here. So let's see what she has to say. I haven't watched this, but the title was interesting, so let's see what she's saying, and we'll get into it.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. Guys, today we are talking about the infamous ick list.
As if.
If you have no
Mean Girls, what a classic.
idea what I'm talking about, allow me to enlighten you, because the subject is very funny and it has been trending on social media for a while now. It's not really a specific trend that's happening right now. It's just been going on for a couple of years. More and more people are doing it and more people are taking it seriously, which is why we're going to discuss it. So the word ick entered the mainstream with women finding icks or red flags about their prospective partners or their boyfriends, husbands, fiancés, whatever. This really started as a lighthearted, not serious fun.
So that's interesting that she kind of equates ick to red flags, because I think the two things are, in my interpretation anyway, are qualitatively different. Because I think like a red flag is kind of a serious indicator that this person is not right or is not relationship material, right? So you might say a red flag in a woman is that she has a high body count, or she goes to the club every night, or whatever. Those are classic red flags that people identify in women. With a guy, it might seem to a woman, he doesn't seem to be the sort who's going to settle down, or he's going to cheat on her, or whatever. More serious things, okay? The ick, I always interpreted as being, kind of like, oh, he used the wrong spoon when he was in the restaurant, or he didn't know about the wine, or his sweatshirt didn't quite match his pants, or these more minor things that women will disqualify guys on. So I think they don't quite equate. It's kind of funny, actually, because I was talking to my ex-girlfriend the other day, and she was saying, my resolution is to avoid red flags. And I said, well, obviously I didn't have any red flags when he met me. And she said, your flags were so red, they'd gone beyond red. They were kind of maroon. So That was her opinion. I can't confirm or deny, but anyway, let's see what Brett has to say.
Trend, but with this latest list of icks, say that 10 times fast, that seems never ending, I think this whole trend is revealing something that is very harmful about the dating environment of our current generation, and we're gonna get into that today. Before we do though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you've not already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section episode. All right, so it's mainly women that post these icks.
Well, it's almost totally women, isn't it? Because I don't think guys get the ick in the same way, right? Because guys are, for a start, guys are like starved of affection and the ability to maneuver in the dating sphere anyway, right? I mean, that most guys are not getting any action. Let's be honest. I mean, or at least there's a sizable minority of guys who are just, there's just nothing happening as far as their dating lives are concerned. So they don't have the luxury of being able to get the ick, because if any woman who's halfway decently attractive gives them attention, they're not going to then disqualify her on some minor thing like the cutlery she uses or the sauce that she orders with her main course or the pants she wears and the color they are in combination with the rest of her outfit. They're going to be much more forgiving of these minor things because they just have less options.
And they are doing it all the time. So one TikTok account took it upon himself to compile an insane list of these women's dating icks. And to all my guys out there, I'm going to warn you in advance, you are shit out of luck, at least according to the, let's see, number 585th ick, which is the latest addition to this list. There are
550?
585.
585 icks, Jesus Christ. I wonder how many of these I'm ticking off, probably all of them.
Reasons that women apparently do not like you and do not want to date you. Dear God. All right, let's watch this video.
When he takes a nap, it irrationally annoys me.
Ick videos going down. There we go. 585. Don't take a nap. Nope. That's the latest, guys. You can't. The caption reads, "We can't even rest without it being a problem." No, you cannot, because napping might irrationally annoy your partner. Somebody commented and said, "I must admit, after being single, I have a nap all the time. Nobody gets mad at me. Sometimes I text my ex to tell her I'm napping."
That's quite funny, isn't it? I mean, you know, so you can see this stuff is absurd, but this is the luxury that modern women have, because modern women don't have to, if the guy falls short in any perceivable way, even if that perceivable way is ridiculous, like he likes to take a nap sometimes, then she's just got so many other options that it doesn't matter. She can just go out and find somebody else.
Somebody else said he only takes a nap to avoid talking to her. That might be the case. Somebody else said, so they have a list of what they don't like. Can we, LOL? And somebody said, no, we can't, or we'll get canceled. Yes! Like, honestly, just imagine if this was a trend among men complaining about women. The shrieking and crying that would occur online would literally shake the earth. It really reminds me of this thing that happened on a college campus. I don't remember what school it was at particularly, but these women compiled a list online of men that they had gone out on dates with that they thought were harmful, dangerous, weird, and kind of like as a warning for other women, like don't go out with them, and you could go and search and see if the guy that you were dating or wanted to go out with was on this list. And guys were speaking out and saying, well, just because you didn't like me doesn't mean that somebody else is gonna like me, and just because you thought we had a weird interaction doesn't mean that I'm, harmful. And they were saying, what if we made a list about you? And obviously the women were like, ah! That is what would happen. That is exactly what would happen if men started compiling icks about women. But I digress.
Well, I mean, the market just doesn't operate in that way, does it, right? Because if guys started compiling lists of icks about women, women would just say, well, fine. That you can think that, whatever. Well, they wouldn't say fine. They complain about it like she's saying. But ultimately, they would just find another suitor. They'd find some other dude who's happy to take her on board despite that ick. Because really, if you're an attractive woman in your prime, then you're going to have so many opportunities in the dating market that there's going to be plenty of dudes out there who are just going to take you on board, icks or not. So the market just doesn't operate in a way that favors men in this regard.
Here is yet another ick.
What gives you the ick?
When a boy puts a seatbelt on in the car, it repulses me.
Repulses me. Oh, we're actually at 588 now. Don't put.
So she was English, wasn't she? That's like, oh, when a boy puts a seatbelt on in the car, that repulses me. So any regard for his personal safety is, I guess, maybe she's saying it's like unmasculine, right? Because he's got this regard. He's like, oh dear, I don't want to die potentially in a car accident. He puts on the seatbelt, and that's seen as unmanly. Maybe it could be to do with that. Interestingly,
on a seatbelt. Don't be safe. She doesn't care if you get in a car crash and die, because at least she wouldn't have had the ick. The caption on that one is, we're not even allowed to follow the law anymore. No, that is an ick in itself, actually. Don't bend a knee to the government.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I mean, it's kind of like you've got to be the renegade outlaw, haven't you, right? And if you're putting on your seatbelt and doing soy things like that, how do you expect to get tail in 2024? I mean, come on, guys. You've got to be an outlaw. You've got to be a renegade. You've got to go against the system, fight the man. Don't wear a seatbelt. I mean, do, obviously. I'm not seriously recommending that, but I'm just saying that's the environment in which we now appear to live.
I'm not actually being serious, but I kind of am. Now, with this girl, I don't really get the sense that she's joking. Also, she's drunk, so drunk words are sober thoughts. Just saying. Like, I think that actually might be a...
I think she's right. I think, yeah, I think Brett's right. I think it did genuinely seem like she got the ick from the idea that a dude might put on a seatbelt, which is kind of, this is the world in which we live in. Marriage causes divorces. Putting on a seatbelt is not dark triad. Exactly. Anybody, if you wear a seatbelt, man, you're not dark triad, right? I mean, listen, Tyler Durden in Fight Club, right? Would he wear a seatbelt? In fact, isn't there a bit in that movie when they crash the car? Do they refer to seatbelts there? I can't remember exactly, but you know, you've got to be that outlaw character. You don't give a fuck, you know. And that is probably at the heart of, although it sounds absurd, that woman's complaint about the seatbelt thing, because the guy isn't hardcore enough. He's not enough of a anti-establishment warrior for her to feel turned on by.
Thought that exists in her brain. Somebody commented and said, sorry, officer, but it gives my Mrs. the ick. Somebody else said, at this point, I don't even want to have a girlfriend. Somebody else said, these videos totally made me lose the want for a girlfriend. And guys, this is the problem. This is a silly trend. It's a stupid thing that took off on TikTok, but it is actually a problem, because these types of obnoxious statements is yet another reason why there is a growing divide between men and women in our dating world. And
well, I mean, it is, you could say it's a silly TikTok trend. It probably is, but it's also based in reality, because these icks that are being identified are genuine icks that some of these women have. Now, obviously, you could say, well, these women are all nuts and these icks are fucking crazy and these women are outliers. And there may be truth in that. But the reality is there are a lot of things that seem to be very superficial that a woman will discard you for, that a woman will reject you for on the basis of, okay? And the reason that women do this is because they have the luxury of being able to do this, because they have so much choice, they have so much abundance, right? If you as a man, if you're watching this and you're a guy, if you had multiple, you know, if every woman in the world was sexually available to you, then you too might raise your standards to the point whereby if one of them wears a seatbelt, you might say, well, I'm not having, you know, she might be a Victoria's Secret model, but she wears a seatbelt, so no way, I'm not going there, right? But because most men don't have that degree, in fact, no men really have that degree of options in the market, they don't have that leverage, then men just aren't able to have these standards. And if they did start to post about standards like this, then as Brett says, they would also get cancelled as well.
Why more and more men are just throwing up their hands and saying, fine, I won't date at all. We've talked about that a lot. We've talked about how men are just saying, nope, I don't need to date. I don't want to date. I don't want to even try. I don't want to be on dating apps. And you wonder why. You seriously wonder why. Like, wake up, ladies. You're making requests like these. Like, I've been sitting here and I'm genuinely trying to think about it, but I think that I only have one ick, and it's not even really about guys specifically. It's about people who feed their dogs dead food.
Oh, here we go. All right. Let's not have all of your advertising stuff here, Brett. Let's jump past this. She always does quite a nice little segue into the ads, though. I quite like it. Right, here we go.
I won't have a problem with you. There will be no more icks on my watch. But I digress. Here's another real ick.
I don't like when men know how to cook, because why do you know how to cook? That's a problem.
Right. I agree with this one. Men, you should not be able to cook. I can't cook a damn thing. And I'm not giving any woman the ick because I can cook, because I fucking well can't cook. You shouldn't be able to cook. Like, why the fuck are you learning to cook? Jesus Christ. Anyway, we've got fucking Uber Eats now. Nobody needs to be able to cook, let alone a man. There's something very unmanly, in my view, about a guy putting on the fucking apron and going in the kitchen and fucking chopping up a bunch of, I don't know, courgettes or whatever, right? It just doesn't seem to be. Now, yes, I know you've got Gordon Ramsay, you've got these alpha kind of, you've got Jamie Oliver, you've got these dudes, fine, okay. But in general, if you're some kind of dad bod buffoon and you take pride in your fucking cooking ability, you need to get a life, bro. It's just not fucking, I mean, you know, did Alexander the Great cook? Did fucking, you know, did Genghis Khan, was he known for his, I don't know, fucking vol au vents? Probably not, right? Did Tyler Durden in Fight Club cook? Absolutely not, all right? This is just the antithesis. You shouldn't, just forget the fucking cooking thing. I agree with this woman on this, Ick. She's absolutely right.
Excuse me? I thought that you wanted men to do everything for you. Here we go. Oh, the one right before that. Don't cry. Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's a bit more of a common one, isn't it? Right? This whole thing about not crying. And I think there's probably, like with all of these things, I think there's some leeway here. But I think for the most part, you don't want to be crying. You don't want to be just bawling your eyes out about ridiculous shit. It's just not a good look. It's not. She's not gonna, you know, respect that. She's gonna dry up like a desert.
Don't know how to cook. I thought that was such a turnoff. Like you meet a guy and all he knows how to make are microwavable chicken nuggets. That's probably on the list.
Chicken nuggets is like my family.
Like I seriously would assume that is a green flag. In my eyes, that is a major green flag. Like where are these expectations coming from? It makes...
Well, it's probably a green flag for her because, you know, she's more of a trad-y type sort of girl and she's a conservative and she's probably thinking, she's engaged now anyway, I think, but she's thinking, I want to meet that guy who's going to be we're going to have a nice family existence together and blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is that actually the nurturing, the guy that can cook, the guy who's good around the house, the guy, in other words, who is domesticated, the reality is that's not very sexy, right? That's not the fucking warrior archetype, is it? I mean, is that guy going to fucking... Like at the moment, right, in England, they're talking about how there might be conscription, okay? They're saying that the army is depleted, and so if we went to war with Russia or somebody else, then we would need to get a load of civilians into the army, and there's been obviously a lot of talk about that. A lot of people vehemently against it, of course, but I was on the phone I was on a Zoom call with my trainer this morning and he was saying, Jesus Christ, have you seen this? And he was saying, like, most guys in England, you wouldn't go to war with those fuckers. Do you know what I mean? Like, you would never go to, like, the people with their dad boards, they're skinny fat, they're Cheeto eating, basement dwelling, fucking buffoons who just don't have the nuts to be in that combat kind of situation. So, you know, if you're concentrating on your cooking and you're not, you know, you want to be concentrating on things that are manly, things that are fucking masculine, right? Because that's ultimately what's going to turn these women on. Now, yes, it might be, yeah, you know, when you're in a nice relationship. I mean, I cooked for my ex a couple of times. Very badly, I hasten to add, but there's a couple of little things I did. That was quite a long way into the relationship. It was quite nice, but you know, that certainly wasn't my major role in the thing because the man to female polarity worked better. More of the time she would cook. Not that I insist on having a female that can cook either, because like I said, there are these things called restaurants. There is Uber Eats. You can get, you know, basic stuff and just bring it in. I mean, all I eat anyway is protein, so it's not really a fucking big deal. You know, I don't want loads of fancy stuff being cooked for me.
No sense, but they don't stop. Somebody said she'll change her mind in a few years. She's going to be looking for a guy that cooks. Yes, you will be. Another guy said, damn, what? I gotta eat TV dinner.
That might be true because you could argue, well, she'll get to that age where she's, settling down age, and then it'll be like, oh, well, actually, if he can cook and he is a bit more domesticated, I like that. So there is some truth in that as well. It depends on the age of these women, presumably quite young.
...and fast food my whole life? According to that girl, you might have to. I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous. Men need to be men, and they need to provide. But don't be too masculine, because that's sexist and patriarchal. But you should never assume that a woman has to cook and clean. But also, if you know how to cook as a man, that's a red flag. What do women want?
Yeah, okay. She's got quite a good point there, hasn't she? It is problematic, because it's like, well... So the way I'm coming at it is I'm actually siding on the patriarchal side of things here. I'm saying, no, fuck all the cooking, fuck being domesticated. You want to be you want to go more into your masculine archetype, okay? And I believe from everything that I've seen that is more attractive, certainly to women who are in the peak of their fertility, let's say, okay? Overall. However, she makes a very good point, because that, by some, would be regarded as toxic masculinity. It will be regarded as problematic, etc., etc., etc. And why aren't you sharing the household duties like the cooking, etc.? So she's right. Men are in this double bind now, aren't they? Where on the one hand, women are attracted to very masculine traits, but the culture also simultaneously denigrates and suppresses those exact same masculine traits. So guys really are screwed either way.
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
Can you imagine being a 22-year-old man on TikTok in our modern era, scrolling and seeing these types of videos, and like your head is exploding. Like, I genuinely don't know what I have to do because nothing I do is right. Even if it's a joke. The fact that this is out there, it is obviously confusing. And no wonder guys are throwing in the towel. Now,
I mean, yeah, to be fair, the problem is what you've got here is a collection of quotes from random women, probably from all over the world, and some of the more outrageous ones have been collated into this list, and it's not necessarily representative of every single woman, and blah, blah, blah. But like she says, the issue is, even if some of this is a joke, or even if some of this is hyperbole, or it's an outlier opinion that most women don't hold, the issue is that the very fact that all of this stuff is out in the world is difficult, and it is causing a problem for men, because men really are so screwed now, aren't they? It really is a question of like, well, what the hell do I do? Right? You know, like if I try to be more masculine, I'm going to get accused of being like a patriarchal, Neanderthal, toxic kind of predatory, whatever, right? But on the other hand, if I then try to embrace my more feminine side, my more domesticated side, I'm going to get friend zoned, I'm going to get ghosted, I'm going to get dumped for Chad, until finally she gets to a point where she's thinking, well, actually, you know, I need to settle down now, so maybe I'll give that chump who I dumped 5 years ago, maybe I'll give him another chance. Boundless Garden says, Troy, your channel is awesome. I disagree with you in a few places, but your content is quality. Keep being awesome. Thank you so much. Martin says, Troy is cooking. And Don DeMarco says half this list probably negates the other half. It probably does. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of contradictory stuff on here, and that's the other thing. You can never please anybody. You can never please everybody all of the time.
I've shown you a few videos of this guy adding them to the list. There are tons of other videos out there with more extended explanations for why certain things are an ick, but I wanted to pause on some of his videos while he's scrolling to see what the other icks were. And just remember, this list is almost 600 items long now. I want to read you some of my favorites. Don't smile. Don't be happy.
That's a good one. So there was some conversation yesterday or over the last few days in my WhatsApp group about whether you should smile or not on your dating profile. And there's disagreement on this point, right? Should you smile on your dating profile or not? Now, apparently, when you go into, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Photo Feeler, which is the software that you can put your photos in, and then it gets like rated by a bunch of, well, women, I believe, and I think you can cut it by age and so on and so forth. But your photographs get rated, and they say which are the hotter ones, which are the less hot ones, etc. So you can decide what's going to be best to put on your dating profile. So apparently Myron has talked about this on Fresh and Fit as well. Apparently, in general, the ones where you're smiling are rated as being more attractive by women. Okay, great. So that would make sense. That would seem to be logical on the surface, right? He looks friendly, he looks unthreatening, he looks like a cool guy. The problem is, though, that if you smile too much in a picture, you can look like one of those grinning, geeky dorks on those soy boy memes. You know, you've seen them, haven't you? Where they're like that, you know, the open mouth thing. Like, you don't want to be that guy. And I believe, I'm very skeptical of this Photo Feeler evidence, right? Of this Photo Feeler feedback. I'm not sure that it's true. Because if you look at any advertisement for a major film, okay, how many times do you see the lead male actor grinning like a buffoon? Like zero. Unless maybe it's a comedy movie, okay? If it's a comedy movie and the guy is like a goofy character or something, then yeah, maybe. But for the most part, if you look at all the Marvel stories, if you look at all of the action movies, if you look at the James Bond, if you look at any advertising for those movies, right, the lead character always has that very stoical. He got that gleam in his eye, but he's not smiling, or at least if he is smiling, it's a very, very slight, quizzical smile. Okay, he's certainly not grinning like a fucking poltroon. And the problem with smiling for guys is that it can look submissive. It can look like you're a yes man, you're a nice guy, and she's going to be able to walk all the fuck over you. Okay, and so this thing on the list, right? Don't smile or be happy. It sounds stupid. But a lot of the time, right, we have guys who we coach and we're getting them to approach women in different social situations. And they walk into the approach and they're smiling like this, like, and then, you know, he says to her, okay, so what do you do? What job do you do? And she says, oh, I work in McDonald's. He's like, oh, really? Oh. You know, like that. And, oh, wow, McDonald's. Oh, wow, that's amazing. You know, and it's all to, like you want to be more, if you imagine, and this is very much about male to female, female to male attraction. If you imagine the super high value dude who's a boss, who's fucking bossing it in his life, right? He's not fucking around. He hasn't got time to mess around. He hasn't got time to deal with women who are low quality or just whatever, right? He's not going to be grinning like a poltroon at the fact that you work in McDonald's, at the fact that you work in Starbucks, right? He's going to be appraising. He's going to be like, okay, look, yes, you're beautiful, you're attractive, fine. But are you a quality person? Are you the kind of woman that I actually want to spend time with? You know, do you have some interesting stuff going on? Are you a cool person? And he's going to be looking at her more appraisingly, almost like in a job interview. It's like, okay, so you work in McDonald's, really? Anything else? You know, you're a model. Okay, well, what else do you do? Right? You know, you want to have more of that sort of appraising nature. You don't want to be this kind of smiling, submissive dolt who will just like allow anything to fly past. So I do kind of understand this ick a little bit, because I've seen this actually happening in real time with guys approaching women, and their whole demeanor is just too agreeable. Okay. There's a lot of paradoxes in this stuff, and it makes it difficult, but you need to get your head around the science if you're a guy and you're looking to attract women.
Be truthful. Don't walk downhill.
Don't be truthful. That's don't be truthful. That's a funny one. Well, I'm not sure my exes would agree with that, but don't walk downhill. Don't be born in a certain month or listen to country music. Well, yeah, country music. It's a bit lame. Don't have a birthday. Don't get cold. Don't get cold is an interesting one, isn't it? Men are meant to be super resilient, right? Men are not meant to be vulnerable. Okay? So as stupid as it sounds, don't get cold. There is logic behind that. Okay? I'm not sure about don't walk downhill. That's a bit, I don't get that one. But don't get cold, don't fall over. Both of those, in a way, there's some sense behind them, because these women are looking for this guy who is invincible. They're looking for the superhero who nothing bad ever happens to, and if something bad does happen to him, he's impervious to it, right? He's not hurt, he's not in pain, he's not anguished about it. He just gets on with it.
Your shoes, but I'm sure that having Velcro shoes is an ick as well.
Ew, no, David.
Don't be born in a certain month or listen to country music. Don't have a birthday. No, could you just not be born? Could you be like Zeus's daughter and just come out of his head? Maybe that'd be great. Don't fall over. Don't have a bath. Don't have a hobby. Don't carry a bag. Don't breathe. Don't put your car blinkers on. That's a personal favorite of mine. Don't breathe while talking. Don't have a shower. Don't go bowling. They would not like to know that my fiance was on the varsity bowling team. And I love him for that. Don't be named something starting with a J. Don't run in water. Don't go skiing. Don't walk up steps. So you can't walk downhill, but you also can't go on steps. You just need to stay in one place. You need to walk completely horizontally. You want to climb a mountain? So sorry, you cannot. Don't eat chicken nuggets. What did I tell you? I told you that was going to be a problem. But you also can't cook. Don't have OCD. Don't be affected by wind. Like, it's so dumb, guys. It's so dumb. And yes, I can take a joke. I understand that some of these are sarcastic and some girls are looking for a reaction. They want to get a rise out of guys. But again, the fact that it is normal and acceptable and people like to make fun of men for totally normal and often very nice, good things is ridiculous. And that is the real problem. And a lot of these women are not joking. They aren't making jokes. They are genuinely turned off by some of these things. And we've talked about this before, but it's getting to the point where men are not only giving up on dating, but they are becoming proud of themselves for giving up on the entire concept, which is a sad reality that all of this has resulted in. Here's an article, Why Men Have Given Up on Dating, understanding the hashtag MGTOW movement, and that stands for the Men Going Their Own Way movement, and this article highlights it and it explains some of the reasons why men have gone their own way and have given up on dating, and it directly correlates to the icks that so many of these women are making fun of and talking about online. One guy said, quote, I haven't completely given up on dating women, but I am currently on a hiatus. I may end up alone forever, probably because my standards are still too high. Still, I won't settle until I can find someone who holds herself to the same standards that she holds me to.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of these women, and we see this on Fresh and Fit and these shows all the time, a lot of the women who have these incredibly high standards in all of these areas themselves are not at the level that they would seek in a partner. Right? So women are not held accountable in the same way that dudes are.
So good. And you know what? I can't fault him for it at all, because that's very understandable. That's not bad at all. If women are going to have these crazy ick lists and these crazy demands, then they should be holding themselves to an equal standard of perfection that they are expecting. Here's a story from another man. He said, "To be honest, I'm just tired. I feel like every girl I meet has a list of expectations for me. I just want to be myself." Literally a list of expectations. And like I've said before, and like I will always say, men and women alike should have standards. That is an extremely important and healthy.
So you see, the problem with that guy who wrote that is that I feel for these guys, and I do get where they're coming from. But the reality is, I bet you these guys are not optimized to the degree that they could be either. All right, there's got to be a halfway point here. So yes, all of these icks that she's identified and are in this list are ridiculous, or most of them are. Many of them are. Some of them you can understand, but a lot of them are just completely ridiculous, and nobody's going to be able to adhere to all of them anyway. But at the same time, men also, the burden of performance is on us, okay? We don't get a fucking free pass. So we do have to ensure, to the best of our ability, that physically we're in the best shape possible, right? You work out every day, or you work out 5 times a week, with high intensity, whatever. You need to make sure that your fashion is on point as much as possible. You need to make sure that your grooming is on point. You need to make sure that your riz is on point, okay? And how you come across in the fucking interactions, okay? And yes, that's a lot to take on board, but this is just the reality of the modern world. And I bet you that these dudes who are complaining have not optimized themselves in that way. I mean, for me personally, I have never been into, I can't remember a date situation in the last 20 years where I felt like a woman has a big list of expectations for me. I just come in and I'm just how I am now. And if she likes it, she likes it. And if she doesn't, she doesn't. But the fact is, I've got a lot of abundance because I'm very social. I meet a lot of people. I talk to a lot of different people. I bring a lot of different people into my life. And so I'm not really tied down to, oh my God, there's this one girl. And if she doesn't like me because she gets the ick because I'm wearing a blue shirt with this jacket, for example, then she's gonna, like, I just don't give a fuck. It doesn't come onto my radar because I've got other shit going on. I've got other options anyway. I'm talking to, probably talking to other girls. And it's just not a problem for me. So even if some of these women do have these supremely high standards, it doesn't even affect me because I'm not even taking any attention to it at all, okay? I think a lot of these guys, firstly, they probably haven't optimized themselves fully anyway. So there probably is work to be done in different areas. And listen, sometimes, right, these icks that she's identifying are actually a proxy for something else, okay? So the ick might be, oh, he walked up some stairs, right? But maybe that's not the real problem. Maybe the real problem is he's a fat fuck or he's got a dad bod and she's just not that into him. Okay. So then he does something and it's mildly annoying and she kind of identifies that as an ick. But actually, if it was Henry Cavill and he was walking up some stairs, or if it was whoever else, who's the dude who plays, the Peaky Blinders guy, right? If it was him and he was, what was one of the other ones, eating chicken nuggets, it wouldn't be a problem. Right? So these icks are likely a problem when the dude doesn't have enough inherent value anyway to hold her attraction. Okay? I believe a lot of these icks would be completely ignored if these dudes were higher value. So the onus is on the guy, I'm afraid. Right? We can't really get around it as much as we'd like to. And yes, it is unfair and it's annoying and everything else, but the burden of performance has always been on men. Okay? So we have to in some way meet this halfway, okay? We do have to self-actualize. We do have to transform. We do have to become the best possible versions of ourselves. And we have to learn how to fucking communicate that as well. We have to learn how to go out there and market ourselves in the right way to enough women that some of them are going to come through, okay? Some of them are going to be more amenable to us than others, and we're going to end up dating them. We're going to end up having relationships with them, okay? There's no easy path to this. It seems to me that a lot of the time, yes, the dating marketplace is difficult. Yes, it's brutal out there. Yes, the apps are really difficult for guys. Yes, things are weighted against average guys. But it also seems, certainly a lot of the dudes that we come into contact with aren't really giving themselves a fucking fighting chance anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not even reaching a level. Like, if you've completely maxed out everything, if you've got a 12-pack, and if you're working out every day, and if you've looks max, and your fashion's amazing, and you've made a load of money, and you're living a fucking amazing life, and you're still not getting any action, then okay, fine. There may be some cause for complaint there. You might say, look, this dating marketplace now is ridiculous. But I've never met a single guy who's maxed out in all those areas who is not getting action in dating. All right? It just doesn't happen. And people aren't talking about, well, he eats chicken nuggets or he whatever else. He walks up a hill or he walks down a hill or whatever, right? Like, people aren't talking about icks like that because these guys are high fucking value, okay? So we do need to be putting in the effort to our value. That is not to denigrate the idea that the dating marketplace is tough and it's difficult and it's against men. It is, but at the same time, we need to all fucking level up as well.
Practice in dating. But as we've seen online, expectations are getting blurred with superficial red flags and icks, and it is becoming impossible for men to keep up. It's becoming impossible for them to figure out what is sarcastic, what's a joke, or what is some actually very unrealistic standard that they have to live up to. Another guy said, I do not feel motivated to put in the effort. It's been a year since I've given up dating, and I've grown to love my peace where I do not have to have my every action, purchase, and thought questioned or attacked. Like, that's genuinely heartbreaking. They don't feel like they can be themselves. They don't feel like they're respected. Everything they do is attacked. Again, no wonder they've given up on dating. That is not what dating should feel like. If you expect a man to treat you like a princess, to give up things that you don't like, to be this perfect person for you that you have in your list, if you want him to put in the work, you need to treat him with the same kindness, the same respect, and the same adoration that he has for you. And if he has a list, you better figure out a way to fall in line. It's really not that complicated.
Fantastic. Well, what do we think about that? There were some really interesting points, actually, that came through with that, which I thought, just from looking at the title, was going to be the case. As I say, I think I did a little bit of a rant there before that last bit. I think there's two sides to everything. And I think that there is definitely problems in the dating marketplace. It is not easy for guys. Guys are having a a lot of guys are having a really tough time out there. In the West, in the Anglosphere, okay, which is mainly what we're talking about here, right? If you go to Eastern Europe, if you go to Latin America, etc., maybe the story is somewhat different. But in the West, in the Anglosphere, yes, it is very problematic. But are guys really maxing themselves out? Are they giving themselves the best possible chance? I don't think that they are a lot of the time. You know, like we look at guys' dating profiles, we look at guys. 1428. Okay. We look at dudes' dating profiles. We look at the photographs that they put out online, and we look at the way that they present themselves, and then we'll watch them actually in field. You know, going and doing approaches, going and talking to women, and a lot of the time it does fall short. Okay, a lot of the time it can be improved, it can be tweaked. Right? There's just things, and sometimes on multiple levels that are just not working in the dude's favor. All right, and so, as much as, yes, you can blame society and you can blame modern women and you can blame high standards and unrealistic expectations and all that stuff, and that may be true to a degree, if you're not actively pushing yourself as a guy on a daily basis to be the best that you can possibly be, then you kind of can't really complain. You've got to you've got to go the extra mile. That's just how the dating. If you want to be successful, I mean, and look, I mean, a lot of these dudes have just given up, and if that's what you want to do as well, then that's fine. That's your choice. I mean, I went through quite a low period about a year or so ago, and on my other channel I was doing a lot of videos about pretty much giving up myself, not because I didn't have options, but just because I was just kind of I was just kind of over the whole thing, and I'd had this issue with my ex, and you know, I was just fed up with the whole thing. But that's coming from the perspective of somebody who's nearly 50 and who has had a shit ton of experience in dating, and I've been around the block many times, and you know, you get to that point and you sort of think, well, maybe I can hang my hat up now, you know, maybe I've done enough in the trenches. You know, fast forward to now, and I feel I'm in a very different place. You know, I'm very much back on it again, if that makes sense. But that's a different thing to giving up simply because, you know, you're just not getting any traction at all. And yeah, I think you can give up if that's what you want to do. You can say, listen, this whole dating thing is just not for me. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go another way. But yeah, I don't know. It is sad, and I think that people are kidding themselves if they think that they can live a life of happiness without any kind of relationships with the opposite sex. You know, you want to have something. I mean, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get married. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to long-term relationships. But we need sex, we need affection, we need companionship. Okay, those things are very, very important. And I think it's a bit of a cope just to say, well, I'll just forgo all of that, particularly if you haven't maximized yourself and you aren't approaching consistently and you aren't putting in the work. Okay, most of these guys just, frankly, they aren't. So this isn't me, I'm not bending the knee to the feminist, the gynocentric order or anything like that. But what I am saying is you've got to put the fucking effort in, guys. And it comes back to, myself and James have been talking a lot recently about hormones and testosterone and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you've got to have the get up and go to actually want to go and make this stuff happen. All right. You should have enough nuts in you. There's a great Wes Watson. I was listening to, it's Wes Watson, isn't it? That dude, that motivational penitentiary guy. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff recently. And there's this great quote. He says, how do I know I was a man? I looked down and I saw a dick and balls hanging between my legs. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And it's like that. You've got to have that just capacity to go out into the world and make things happen for yourself. It's a very passive mindset to sit there and go, oh, well, it's all a little bit hard now. And women get the ick if I walk up a hill. So I'm just going to give up and just sit in a room for the rest of my life. If you're like me and you're a jaded old degenerate bachelor and you've kind of been through the ringer, then yeah, sure. At some point you can hang your boots up and relax and think back on times past. But, if you're a young man and the truth of the matter is actually you do want to be intimate with women. The truth of the matter is actually you do want to date. You do want to have sex. You do want to have all these crazy, wonderful experiences. Then you've got to get yourself make yourself into the sort of guy that women are going to be fucking attracted to. At least do that. If you've really maxed yourself out in all those areas, and we know what they are, money, muscles, game, frame, basically, right? Max yourself out in all of that. Work on that every day for a year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as it takes to get to as high a level as you can. And if finally in the end you're like, do you know what? I still can't get it. I still can't pull a muscle. Nothing's happening. Then okay, fine. But at least you've given it a fucking go, okay? Because we're only here once. It's like, what, 1 in 4 billion chance that you're on this planet? That you're even here, conscious and sentient as a human being, a 1 in 400 billion chance, and you're just going to sit there and go, well, it was a bit difficult, so I decided to play Minecraft instead. It's fucking pathetic, man. You've got to just get the bollocks together and do this stuff. Anyway, let's have a look at these comments. We're trying to get Faye in, but I think that the... Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Faye? We're trying to get the guest in, but I think that we are having some technical issues here, so I'm not sure that this is going to happen today, sadly. Maybe we can figure it out for another show. Unless, if you can... Faye, let me know, drop me a message or something. It seems like we can't hear or see you for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. So we've got a super chat here, $4.99 from Boundless Guardian, and he asks... Do you think that men can actually turn into good fathers after 50 bodies, or will they get addicted to variety and they won't be able to settle down? I think that they can be good fathers after 50 bodies. And remember that Myron's prescription is that you should actually sleep with about 50 women before entering into a serious relationship and I guess settling down. And I guess that would mean kids as well. I think that for men, it is... And who was I reading the other day? I was reading somebody the other day, and they made the point, and I somewhat agree, that I think that this whole thing about a guy is unable to pair bond after a certain period of, a certain number of times, I think it is somewhat overstated. I believe that actually you can reach a point where you think, okay, I now have done enough of that. I now have done enough philandering and gallivanting around, and actually... the time is right for me to focus on this one person and to bring children into the world and to do that to the best of my ability. So I do think people can change. I don't think it's this binary thing. And I think age plays into it again as well. And people, depending on how old you are and people watching this, how old you are, if you're, say, 29 or you're 32 or something like that, you don't realize how your perspective starts to alter as you get older, all right? My objectives, the things that I want, the way I want my life to look, the things that interest me, the things that motivate me are different to what they were when I was in my 20s. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I was just crazy. I was just running around the place. I was dating. I was doing all this kind of stuff and everything like that. And I maintained that for the next 2 decades, more or less. And I'm not saying that I'm completely different to that now, but you certainly start to get a different perspective on life, and you certainly start to get a different perspective on what is actually important. Okay. So I think that a guy could do that. I think the research seems to suggest that it's more difficult for women to pair bond after a certain number of bodies. I mean, the other thing as well is, of course, fidelity, right? So this guy, this notional guy in this question, yes, he could find a woman, partner with her, have kids, and then maybe he's not always going to be faithful to her, but he's still going to be a great father. I mean, there's that side of it as well. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not advocating for that, but there is that possibility also. So the fidelity, I think being a good father versus are you 100% faithful all the time, I think those are two slightly separate things. Although I agree for many women, it's very important that they come together. So basically my answer is yes. I think that he could do that. And thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the question. What else have we got? Raging Tomato in the house. Good to see you. I mean, do we go back or do we go forward here? I don't know. Super chats are now activated here, so please do give generously. Help me to buy a new suit. It would be very nice. Marriage causes divorce. Win, smoldering. Good, win, blue, steel. Christian Grey never smile. Exactly, Christian Grey never smiles. Okay. So why is that? So if we're being told by Photofeeler, yeah, smile in your Tinder photos, you know, like that, and yet you never see a movie star doing that. Or look at like perfume ads, right? Look at fragrance ads, male models, right? Very rarely smile, or at least they're certainly not smiling in a kind of cheesy way. Okay, you smile, you can either look corporate, which is not great, or you can look dorky, which is not great, or you can look submissive, which is also not great. So you've got to be very careful. You can have a hint of a smile, but I think a full-on smile is you're on dangerous ground as far as looking sexy is concerned. And yes, blue steel. You know, it's the hunter eyes, isn't it? You know, it's when the eyes are slits. You know, you don't want to have that sort of wide-eyed kind of naive look to you. Raging Tomato. We're not trying to date the movies. And it has to appeal to men and women both. Well, not if you're on Tinder or a dating app and you're looking to pull women. It needs to appeal to women, doesn't it? Yes. Okay, so Don DeMarco. I remember at least one bit of research indicating a more brooding face is more appealing for short-term hookup type relationships. Yes, I believe that is well, I don't know the research, but I can believe that that's correct. And here's the thing, right? What we are always encouraging clients to do when we're teaching men about how to date women, what we're always telling guys to do is present as the lover, that is the short-term mating prospect, not the provider, okay? You don't want to, in the initial stages, present as the Ned Flanders, loyal, domesticated, family man who can cook kind of thing, okay? You want to present more as the mysterious lover type. Now, after that, you can then transition that into more of a relationship type thing. Because the first thing you have to cement is the attraction, okay? Is there physical and sexual attraction there, right? That's the first bit that you need to get into play. After that, it's easier to transition from the bad boy into the boyfriend than it is to try to go in with a more boyfriendy type vibe, and then she friend zones you because you know, she like ironically, there's going to be more tests applied to you to become her boyfriend than there is to become her lover. To become her lover, you need to switch certain attraction switches, okay? So yeah, he's quite sexy, he's hot, he's a bit irreverent, he's a bit edgy. He is a little bit mysterious. He doesn't seem to be, you know, he's sexy. He's got that thing about him, okay? Then you can get into the lover zone, all right? So you guys become intimate. And then after that, it might be that you realize, okay, actually we quite like each other. We've hung out a long time, and you start to fall into something more serious. It's what happened with me and my ex, right? You know, we were casual for a long time, okay? I wasn't presenting when we first met as being the boyfriend type, but slowly what happened over time was that we spent more and more time together. We started to develop a, affection and then love for one another, and then it became you know, we became joined in a relationship, but that wasn't how it started. Okay. And in general, far too many guys are going into this, trying to get into the boyfriend zone, and they're getting disqualified at the first post. So it's better to go in with the short-term mating strategy, which is the non-smiling, kind of mysterious, slightly jerkish vibe. Get to the point of intimacy with her, and then you guys can decide where you want to go after that.
Oh, is my mic not muted? Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. Awesome. Oh my goodness.
Can you put the camera on?
I don't know. I tried, but I couldn't get the. Oh wait, here we go. Is it gonna work?
Wow.
Oh my gosh, you can see me. Hi.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
Actually, at
Amazing.
the end of
I need
the
to
stream here.
absolutely. I need to make this oh, here we go. And then we get rid of that. Okay, amazing. So now we are joined by a very special guest after all of that intro, which was quite fun actually. I don't know whether you saw any of that. But would you like to
Yes, I did.
Good stuff. Would you like to introduce yourself and then just tell us a bit about yourself, and then we can have a chat about that, and then get into your situation.
Yes. Hi, I'm Joanna. I am 34 years old. I'm a devout Christian woman. I live at home with my parents. It's been a very interesting several years, but basically, I've just been kind of, traipsing through life, basically without any sense of who I should be dating or like what I should be looking for in a man. And I think the biggest issue for me is like, I don't have a very high body count. I literally have I think I have 4 guys that I've ever been with my entire life. And I'm very emotionally attached to people when I'm dating them. So I'm not just like a one night stand person. I like to get to know somebody. And a lot of times, and I've realized this recently due to some self-reflection that I've been going through, that I have a tendency to believe people. Like I'm very easily manipulated, very easily coerced into things. And I just don't always understand a guy's true intentions. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that I've been facing, as well as I'm a homebody. Like I love staying home. And so I don't really get out. I don't really see anybody. I don't have a social life. Like I prefer it that way kind of, because it's way less drama that way.
Yeah.
I literally have 1 female friend. So
nice.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for the introduction. And sorry, I was calling you by the wrong name before actually, so apologies for that as well.
That's okay. Yeah, it's my username. It's fine.
Yeah. Fair enough. Good stuff. Before we get into all of that though, what did you think about that list of icks then? What's your take on that? Some of this stuff's pretty crazy. Right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I mean, I've been in this sphere for a while where you guys have been talking about, and by you guys, I mean people who are in this topic realm, who discuss this regularly. I've heard a lot of that consistently throughout. And I think, I mean, I don't know if I have an opinion on it yet because I just started diving into it. But I do think that a lot of it is kind of demographic based, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends on who you expose yourself to and stuff like that.
I mean, I would imagine a lot of this stuff is coming from probably younger women, like maybe I guess you're millennial, right, Pat?
I am, yes.
But maybe even for Generation Z, some of this stuff is probably coming from as well, right? It sounds like quite, because as Brett pointed out later on in the video, it's like some of this stuff, like if she's saying it's an ick that the guy can cook, and then maybe a few years later that girl's going to think, actually no, I quite like a guy who can cook, so that may well change as time goes on. But it's interesting though, because you mentioned having a low body count, but I mean that if you as you know, I mean, watching these shows, I mean, most guys, if anything, that is going to be a plus point for you, right? So it's interesting that you mentioned that as being sort of to your detriment.
It was to my detriment because it was not what I preferred. So for me, ideally, I would have never had a body count.
I see. Right.
Due to my inability to understand when somebody's manipulating me, and I'm not putting the blame on them. This is totally, I didn't understand this about myself. I went into this blind, so I should have done the work on myself first before heading into all of what is dating, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you looking for now then? I mean, you're looking for marriage, right? And what you mentioned when we first spoke on email, you mentioned actually you don't feel like your standards are ridiculous in the way that some of these modern women
Correct.
are. So what are you looking for?
Oh, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this and I've heard this in the past few months of being in this sphere of dating and understanding these things about men and women. I have heard again and again and again how women want, oh, he's got to be 6 foot, or at least he's got to be making 6 figures. Drives me nuts, because I'm like, that is not where you're going to find love. You're literally misinterpreting what love is. Love is a connection between two souls. And the only way you're going to find that is if you have an open mind. You have to think, I want a soul connection. That's what matters. That's how I'm going to foster and facilitate a love connection.
Yeah.
And so basically my standards are, you have to have good character, you have to be God-fearing, and you have to be God-honoring. Those are my 3 things, literally. That's it. I don't care if you're a short person, tall person, don't care, like, at all.
Super ugly.
It's like,
have we got a looks threshold here, or is that? I mean, that's secondary, right?
Not at all. Yeah, I have no looks threshold. I almost married a man one time who literally looked like trash. So I do not care what people look like, what men look like at all. Like, does not hold a candle to what I care about.
Well, that's, I mean, it's refreshing to hear that, right? Because a lot of guys are going to be watching this, or they'll watch the replay and they'll be like, oh, this is, why isn't every woman like this? Because it does seem like we are held to this standard of, well, you've got to be all of these things that you mentioned. And it's great that you're looking at it in a different way, but without giving any details you don't want to give, could you say a bit about what happened? I mean, why has this, obviously you've mentioned these 4 guys. I mean, why is it not? Right. And then they kind of manipulated. I mean, was it that they ultimately weren't looking for anything long term, or they kind of pulled the rug from under you, or how did it end up in this situation?
So one of them, basically, well, 2 of them actually were violent. Basically, the one, it was like in the middle of a party, and he like held me up against the wall, and like he had his hand around my neck, and I was like, okay, I was not phased, but I knew that if that happened again, that I'd be conditioning him to believe that that was okay to do to a woman.
Yeah.
So I told him right away, I said, if you do this again, that's it. I can't be with you, because that's just conditioning you to do something I don't want you to ever do. Both for your sake and for mine.
Yes.
And then the other guy was quite verbally and emotionally abusive, as well as just highly manipulative. And I think later on I found out that he was addicted to Adderall and just had a lot of personality disorders that I wasn't aware of in the beginning, because on the outside I was like, oh, he has good friends, he's very good with people. And then like as I got to dating him, I was like, oh my gosh, like this man is a nightmare. Like I didn't know that from the beginning, and I kind of was kicking myself later realizing that.
Yeah. Okay. And where did you meet these guys? Was this just from locally? Or?
Organically, all except the one that I almost married. I met him online, but it was through like a mutual friend on Facebook. So.
Okay. Yeah. So I suppose the obvious question then, because the obvious advice in this situation would be, well, the local church, the church that you go to, the local religious community you're part of.
You would think.
I'm assuming you've obviously, it's a no-brainer. So obviously you've thought of that. So what's the issue there? Why is that not sort of proving fruitful?
So being a Christian, one of the main things that they push on the youth, and I've seen this in both college setting and church my whole life, is they push for you to get married right away. So a lot of these men who are in this church are already married with children.
Right.
There's really no single guys unless they're teenagers, which I'm obviously way out of that range.
How do you feel about that generally? I don't know if you saw that stream we did the other day when we had when Pearl was here, and we were talking about the whole Christ pill thing versus, well, what they call the red pill, and one of the things you know, you've got this Sovereign Bra guy who's like quite an evangelical Christian dude, and he's making the argument, well, these people who are sleeping around, it's all degeneracy, and you know, you should get married as virgins and all of that. And I suppose the counter argument to that, I suppose, is, but you don't really know each other before, like if you physical intimacy, you know, kind of if you've had it before you get into that kind of contract. In some ways, you could argue from a secular point of view, well, that's better because you know what you're getting into, and if you guys are compatible or not. I mean, where do you stand on all of that?
I mean, I think a big part of what I've learned about social media and things regarding that, it's like the whole, I just love that this whole Christ pill thing has come into play. Like, now that we have the red pill, the black pill, what's next? The blue pill? I mean,
well, there is a blue pill
for it now. So, we're just heading for it.
Well, the blue pill, they normally, when they talk about the blue pill, they normally mean just the sort of the normie position, which is like, oh, it's all like a Disney romance and everything's going to work out, and women are pure and innocent and virginal for the most part, and whatever, you know, it's the very sort of TV romantic comedy kind of version of things. Whereas the red pill was always meant to be, no, this is the truth under the surface. And then I suppose the Christ pill is more, well, actually, we should all be living according to the Bible, and you know, all of this other stuff is degenerate and it's causing harm in society, which, you know, they have some point to that. I suppose the pushback that we were making is, yeah, but realistically, you know, is that actually going to change?
Correct. And I've been hearing this lately with people who are red pill, is that they are kind of responding to feminism. They're like, well, now that feminism is here, this is how we're going to run things. And I understand that, but a lot of times when I'm seeing these guys talking about this specific, pill, if you will, it always seems like there's some sort of hurt that happened to them. And I feel like it's always coming from a place of that instead of logic or reasoning. Maybe to them it's logic and reasoning, right? I don't know. And I never want to judge anybody based off, what I'm seeing at surface level. But to me, it always seems like, even when I watch Myron or if I watch these other people, it always feels like there's something going on underneath the surface.
Yeah. Well, that may be true. I mean, obviously, I know Myron. I can't speak. I don't know so much about his, the whatever past traumas he had to get in there. I mean, I certainly think he was quite out of shape as a younger guy. I think he really had to work hard to on a lot of areas in his life. So probably, as from what I know, I think he probably wasn't having huge success in terms of dating, and then he sort of transformed and he became a different kind of guy. So yeah, there may be what you're saying, some of that. But I suppose, as far as your situation is concerned, I mean, the first thing really is we need to find a way to get you meeting more guys, because it's only through, I mean, it's only through meeting more people that you're going to find one that might be a candidate. So it is quite tricky, because the way you presented it at the moment is that you don't go out and socialize very much anyway. I'm guessing, the church community you're part of, I mean, I don't know where you live exactly, but maybe that's the only place that you would go. Is there any other kind of community? Is there a larger city nearby that you could go and check out some, or are you just very affiliated with that one church, and so you're just going to spend all your time there?
I mean, I'm kind of like in the greater Chicago area. I don't really venture out there much more than I ever used to, because I've pretty much, I lived in Chicago for a year, and I was like, okay, it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's a little bit drama central, and people are kind of cold out there. So I feel like it wasn't the scene for me. But I just recently started going to a new church due to the other one kind of having a falling out. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go here. But I did recently join a new Bible study group in that church. So hopefully, they do have some type of mixers that I'm not really quite sure of yet, because I just started joining this church. So maybe there's a singles thing in there somewhere. I don't know. I will have to contact them for sure. But I think that's really the only social activity that I've been doing as of late.
Yeah. No, definitely. It really is a question. I mean, it's like when we advise guys. I mean, with guys, it's even more the case. You know, there needs to be, you know, guys need to go out and talk to as many women as possible in order to bring somebody in. Now, with women, it's maybe slightly less because women tend to be the more coveted of the genders, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, it seems like your circle is very small. So that's the first thing, because if you're just sitting at home and you're not really getting out at all and you're not online, then you're just not going to meet anybody. So that's the first obvious thing that we need to address. I mean, what about Christian? I know something like Tinder is probably off the table, or, you know, these dating apps,
Right.
but there are some Christian sites, aren't there, that you can meet guys? Have you ever thought about that?
I have. I'm not a huge fan of apps due to past experiences, but I will say, I think I've heard from other people that a lot of times these people will join these apps pretending to be Christian, and then they like
Catfishing
coerce
is,
people or fool
yeah.
people into thinking just because they want a larger dating pool or whatever it might be that their motive is.
God, that's a bit risky. Nevertheless, you know,
Yes,
to be honest, it
it's
might be worth having a go, because you do need to
for
open up
sure.
you do need to open up your options. And then it comes down to this thing you were talking about, manipulation and not knowing if the guy's being manipulative. I mean, it's like any sort of dating app situation. There are going to be people on there with bad intent, male and female, you know, and a lot of it is weeding out the people that are, you know, you're just like, oh, I don't get a good feeling about this, and so on and so forth. But I mean, and just out of interest, as far as moving forward is concerned, I mean, you would want to have children, you want to have a family, or where do you stand on that?
I'm pretty open to that now. I think I was kind of neutral in my earlier years, but now I think like I don't know why this happens, but like when I hear someone as smart as Elon Musk saying that we need more kids, then I'm like, okay, I want to help. I want to find solutions to this because I'm a solution-based person.
Yeah,
And so I think that was what really drove me to be more interested.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then also hearing people talk about how it's like our divine purpose is to have kids. And I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, people have different opinions on that. I mean, I think from a sort of it seems like from a Christian standpoint, it is very much that is your raison d'etre, etc. And I think a lot of people believe that. I mean, I personally think on a species level, yes, absolutely. That is the whole purpose, is to replicate the species. I think on an individual level, it's slightly different because, you know, you might have other things that you want to contribute, and maybe that's not your path or whatever. But putting that to one side, if that is something you want, I mean, obviously you're in your 30s now, 34, you know, so there's still time, but you know, obviously time catches up with us,
On the
right?
double.
So,
Mhm.
but you still look. I mean, you know, you look good in the now. I mean, and remember, for guys as well, it is very much aesthetics do play a part. Now, maybe for Christian
Yeah,
guys, it, you know, maybe Christian guys is going to be a bit different because they're
depends.
gonna say, well, it's less about superficiality and it's about the faith and everything else. But I think if you could maybe get onto one of these apps and get some really good pictures done, you know, with your hair down and like some good makeup and everything else, and just, you know, just make sure that you cover the aesthetic side, not in a tacky way, not in some kind of, you know, anything like that, but just so that you're marketing yourself as best as possible to bring people in. And then you want to basically just try and vet the people. And then I would say, I mean, one of the things that I don't do a lot of dating app stuff. I don't do a lot of online dating stuff. But when I do it, I find one thing that is really good is actually just to get on a Zoom call like this with the person, or get on a call with the person and actually just have a conversation with them for 15, 20 minutes. And you can, I've found, actually get a pretty good sense of the person in that time. So I would say those are two things. A suggestion that's come in on here is actually join a volunteer group.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Or a hobby club
Of
might help to get
course.
some to get some exposure. So there might be, I don't know whether
Yeah,
there's something that you could do that would be in line with your, you know, your faith, maybe like helping the local
right.
community or something like that.
That's an interesting idea, actually.
Because that really is, I mean, like, it's as simple as it sounds, but you know, we all need to get out there and meet people if we're gonna bring anyone into to be intimate with, right? And then it
Right.
seems like for you specifically, there is this issue of then the vetting procedure. And I mean, it might be, and I don't want to get into any sort of like victim blaming type thing here, but it does, perhaps there was an element that you were attracted to these dudes who were slightly toxic? I mean, would that be unfair to
Oh
say?
yeah.
Or
Yeah, I think I just didn't, that's why I was saying before, like, I think I just didn't realize that about myself. And so I was kind of kicking myself later on, finding that out.
I think, you know, one of the red pill tenets is always like women, often, particularly younger women, you know, they are, whether they're Christian or not, you know, they can be attracted to these more, somewhat more toxic traits. You know, the whole thing of like the bad boy and the nice guy finishes last and all that kind of stuff. And then as you start to get a bit older, you recognize, well, hang on a minute, that didn't really serve me, and that's not what I'm looking for, because I want to actually meet somebody to build a life with or whatever. So that might just be a natural progression that you went through. I mean, again, I'm not saying you expected this guy to hold you up against the wall when you first met him, but perhaps there was something in the way he came across that was a little bit toxic, and that was part of, I don't know, you know what I'm saying, on a subliminal level.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, you need to make the effort to try and rule those people out, you know? And it's got to be like,
Yeah.
okay, right, so what's this dude going to bring to the table? Is he actually a good prospect for long term, you know? And I would say doing maybe Zoom dates, you know, it's a COVID era thing now, isn't it, really? But maybe doing
Yeah.
some Zoom dates first is actually going to be a good way to sort of pre-vet them, to find out, okay, what's my initial sense of this person? Does this person seem to be a good person or a bit of a maniac, right? And then if they pass that test, then maybe you can meet them publicly and take it from there. You know what I mean?
Right. 100%. Yeah.
So actually, Boundless Guardian's given a $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much for that. And he says, he's got a question. He says, for the guest, do you think that marriage is still the end goal for you, or are you just looking for a long-term relationship with monogamy?
For me, anytime I get into a relationship, marriage is the end goal. It is always the thing that I am striving for, because for me, dating long term is kind of, in a sense, pointless, because you're not really working towards anything. You're just kind of staying stagnant in a first stage relationship, and you're not really trying to build anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm guessing that as part of your, you know, your belief system, right? I mean, marriage has got to be the right thing anyway for what you ultimately where you want to end up.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, do you get approached by guys? Do you get any guys who are sort of coming through? I mean, what about social media? Do you use social media? Do you use like Instagram and things like this?
Yeah, I got rid of my Instagram, but I do have X, and there's like,
There's some weird guys.
I mean, I've had maybe one or two guys message me in the last couple years. I mean, it's very like, I don't get people messaging me.
Yeah.
So.
No. Okay. Fair. Well, fair enough. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that anyway, because like, you know, even if you were on Instagram, I mean, the kind of quality of the guys who are going to come through there, I think for you need to some sort of Christian dating site, I think would be a good place to at least experiment, because you need to have that filter. You need to have that filter, don't you? Like, you don't just want to meet, or do you? I mean, what if you met a guy and he was a good guy, he was caring, hardworking, you know, whatever, but you did say God-fearing was one of your main things, didn't you? So it kind of has to be.
And that's kind of why I specified that, because the guy that I almost married, he did want to raise his kids in the church. So if we had had children, that's how he would have wanted to raise them. So he wasn't Christian, though. He was, I believe, pagan, because he worshipped the gods like Odin and stuff like that. And I was totally okay with that, because it's his own personal, it's his own personal spiritual journey. But he was the one who would bring me to the Christian church when I was barely kind of going during that time in my life. And so it was him who kind of brought that aspect back into my my circle of things that I do.
Oh, what? So you weren't really as devout before that, then?
I've always been Christian. I accepted Christ back in, I believe it was like when I was 6 years old, but it's been a journey. I've always been very morally, like my moral compass is very strong. It is very like on point, but my beliefs and my categorization of the Christianity that I've had has changed over the years. But I've always been Christian. And recently I've really started to take it up more just because I've wanted to kind of find more guidance in my life.
Mm. Well, I mean, so it was interesting that you accepted the pagan guy, though. I mean, so if there was a guy from another
Yeah.
faith, I mean, would that potentially? I mean, surely it's going to be best if the guy is also Christian, right? I mean, or would you?
Yeah. We would just have to have extensive conversation about like, hey, how do we want to raise kids? Like, how are we gonna like, because one of the best things about being of the same faith is that you can have a shared connection with the same God, the same faith.
Mm,
That kind of because what God is for Christians is it's like our stronghold. It's everything that we hold our morals to, our values to. We don't ever feel like we need to sway from that because of what other people say or anything like that. It's almost like it's the lens through which we live life. So you know how people have like rose colored glasses or something.
mm,
For us, it's like that's how we filter things through life. So it's a great way for a relationship to be guided, to be navigated. And I mean,
mm,
like the thing is too, it's like if you're taking the kids to church, and that's the other thing too, is like I want my kids to be Christian, but I'm not going to force them. I want them to want it for themselves. So as long as I'm showing them through my example that this is what I believe in, this is how I live my life, that will be enough for me to feel like, okay, I'm raising my kids right. I'm doing the right thing for them by showing them how I'm behaving in life. And it will give them an idea of like, this is why it's good to follow the Bible because it benefits you in the long run.
mm, mm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think Tony Robbins talks about when you want to make changes in your life, you have to take what he calls massive action, and it's like just doing
Right.
more stuff. And I think in your situation, it really is about thinking, okay, I need to just be exposed to as many people as I can be, whether that is attending whatever social events, the Bible study group does, whether it is going and joining a volunteer group or even a couple of volunteer groups. I mean, there might, well, as I say, I was going to say even things outside of religion, but then again, we come back to the issue of then the people you meet might not be religious. So there's that. And also I
Yeah.
would say researching some of the Christian dating sites, and
True.
even though, I know we're all skeptical about dating sites and it's a bit like, but ultimately it is a good way to screen because the people taking
The
aside people,
majority.
taking aside people who are faking it, the majority of people on there probably are going to be genuinely religious and they are going to be looking for people. So you need to just have, it's like with sales, you need to just have an inflow of
True.
potential leads, and then you need to narrow those down to be like, okay, is this guy acceptable, is this guy not, is this guy possible, is this guy not, and then take it from there. But I would say, look, I mean, getting to 34, I would say now is the time really to sort of step it up and really just sort of make this a focus, I would say, for the next couple of months and just see where you get to. I mean, what about the living at home thing? Is that just something that I mean, not that necessarily makes a huge difference, but is that something, did you ever think about moving out of home, or did you ever even think about moving to a different community or a larger city or something?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting story. I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Mm,
The first time I moved out was many years ago, but then the person I was living with moved out, and then they sold their house, so I couldn't live there anymore. The second time, I was kicked out because of COVID. That was the landlord's requirement that you get vaccinated, otherwise you can't live there. So I got kicked out that very same
right.
day.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the next time I tried moving out, my apartment got flooded 5 inches, so I had to move out completely at that very same day. So it's been an interesting journey. And then this year was very rough for my family. So I just decided, you know what, I'll just stay here until like things settle down. So
No, fair
it's
enough.
been very
Okay.
interesting.
Well, okay. I mean, that doesn't, like I say, it doesn't necessarily. If it was a guy, I would say, you need to move out and be independent because maybe
Yeah.
if you meet somebody, you want to bring
Yeah.
them back. But for you, it's less of a big deal, really. I just wonder whether the number of guys in your immediate catchment area, because you said you're sort of outside Chicago now, right? So maybe it's a smaller
Yeah.
community. Maybe there's just fewer guys around. That could be problematic as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of an interesting situation because due to being such an online world now, we're all using social media, we're all connecting through our phones. It's a lot harder to meet people organically, but I do really like, I think it was that super chatter who said the volunteer idea, because it's like
yeah,
that would be so just good because you're meeting people whose hearts are in the right place. They
yes,
want to help people. They want to connect with people. And actually, last night my mom invited me to go with her to a women's refuge panel, and it was really eye opening. But there were a lot of women there, I will
hmm.
say. But things like that, I think if I get myself into more volunteer stuff like that, I might maybe find more people, more men who are interested in just having like being more helpful and
Yes.
being more, giving.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I did some volunteering. I mean, it's been a while now actually, but I did do some volunteering. They have a thing here in London where they do at Christmas. You know, they'll do a thing for homeless people, and they'll have a place for them to stay, and they'll give food and stuff like that. And I volunteered there, and there was a lot of like really cool people there. You know, there was a lot of like, I mean, men and women, and you know, you'd end up meeting people, and kind of, I think I ended up going out with one girl afterwards and stuff like that. So it is definitely quite a good thing, a good place to just to meet. I mean, unless and if there's anything that is sort of, I don't know whether you could look on meetups on Facebook. You know, I think Facebook has a
oh,
meetups thing, and see whether there's any either Christian related events happening in your area, or even sort of tangentially um related, like, you know, like a dance, but it's a Christian focused dance or something like that. I think
oh yeah,
that kind of
that's
thing
cool.
is really, and you said that you're introverted, and that's fine. I mean, I'm kind of, I mean, even though doing this and stuff, but I am kind of introverted in the sense that, you know, I like my own space. I like to, you know, have my own privacy and time and stuff. But you have to, for the purposes of this, you have to push through that to some extent, you know,
Right.
and just be out there. And I would say with women, it's different because I'm not generally, you know, the guys should really be making the first move. So it's not about you going around and sort of hitting on people, because, you know, you should just be there and obviously look at the aesthetics as much as you can, and just be there. But I would certainly, if you see guys that you like and you think, oh, he's appealing, I would certainly give, women tend to give those signals, don't they? So maybe it's a smile, or maybe it's a little bit of eye contact or something like that, you know, making the guy feel as comfortable that he can approach without getting shot down in a really rude or sort of abrupt way is going to put you in good stead. Or even what you can also do, say you were at a situation, you know, like you were at the bar or something like that, and there's a guy and he stands next to you at the bar. You could even you could ask him a question that's not a pickup question, but you could say something like, "Oh, that's a nice drink. What's that?" or whatever, right? To give him an opportunity then to get into the conversation. You know what I mean? So it's not you being
Mm-hmm.
obvious, but it is you opening up the option for them to come to you, if that makes sense. Because I think a lot of guys, the problem that they have is approach anxiety. They see a woman and they think
Mm-hmm.
she's attractive, but then they're like, oh shit, you know. So you want to make it, anybody that you see and you kind of like them and you think, oh, I kind of like to get to know him. I think you want to make it as easy for him to, you know, to facilitate that as possible without obviously you actually having to go in and do the approach.
It's interesting you say that because I have actually done that before at a bar where I saw this guy dancing at a in a mosh pit, and I actually really liked it. And I went up to him and complimented him on his abilities to dance, and I said, "Hey, like, do you want to switch phone numbers?" And we did, but I never heard from him. But I still was very proud of myself for going up to him and saying hello.
Well, you know, I mean, like it happens fairly rarely. I mean, like, even, you know,
Yeah.
a friend of mine, James, you know, very very good looking guy. He will always say, even in his lifetime, he's had probably, there's a few occasions where women have maybe come up to him. It's even happened to me. I've had there's been a few occasions, like a couple of occasions, two, three, whatever in my lifetime. You know, a woman's maybe approached me in a way, you know, but what will happen more frequently is either that they'll give you a look, or they'll give you a smile, or they'll do something. It's not an overt thing. But I mean, look, the reality is, if there was a woman and I thought she was attractive, and she came up to me and she said, oh, I like the way that you know, I like what you're wearing, or I like how you dance or whatever, that would be great. You know, I would be totally on board with that, and it would be like, give me an opportunity then to start the conversation with her, you know. So I think I think like with anything, I mean, like life is short. You may as well, you don't have to put yourself out there. You're not going up and saying, oh, I find you incredibly attractive and I really want to date you, you know, because then if they say, oh, thank you very much, and then turn away, then you haven't lost anything. You've got plausible deniability, but you put yourself in the frame to allow something to happen. So I think that the fact that you had the balls to do that before, I think is great. And doing that kind of thing, you know, or at least making it easier for guys that you're interested in to approach, that I think will stand you really in good stead.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm very introverted, but there's a big part of me that has grown to understand how to move through social situations. So it's played to my favor in the dating realm as well.
Well, I had to do the
Very
same.
Interesting.
I had to do the same thing, and I mean, it's maybe different, a little bit different from a male point of view, but I mean, like I was absolutely, you know, I was terrified of women. I was actually very inept socially anyway, even with guys. And then, you know, I've completely flipped it on my head when I hit the age of about 20, and it became, rather than being this thing I was incredibly afraid of, it became this thing that actually became really fun and almost like a game. And even if I was getting rejected, and obviously, you know, you do get a lot of rejection, it's just part of the way life is as a guy, it was still fun. You know, just the challenge of putting yourself out there and thinking, shit, you know, like you were saying, you know, oh, I went and talked to that girl. I mean, yeah, she shot me down, but at least I did it, right? And then you can feel good about yourself, just the fact that you did it. So I think what you'll find is just even putting yourself in these situations, even if it is slightly outside your comfort zone, that's going to improve your confidence. You're going to feel better about yourself just for having done it, you know? Because the worst thing any of us can do if we want to find somebody or we want to, you know, kickstart our dating life or whatever is to basically, you know, isolate and not really meet other people. We need to find ways to put ourselves in front of other people, basically. So that I think is, you know, we've definitely got a few ideas now. I think that you can start to action, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely appreciate the advice because I don't think I would have thought of all of that on my own.
I mean,
as much as I think about this stuff.
I think so. What we could do, if you like, is if you try to do some of that stuff, try to get yourself out there a bit more, and maybe meet some guys, whether it's online, whether it's at some of these social events and stuff like that, and kind of like see what comes through. And then if you want, we could do another call and we could talk about that, because then maybe then you get to the next stage of the issue, which is like, okay, well, I'm meeting some guys, but they're not kind of, I don't want to second guess, but let's say, yeah, I'm meeting these guys, but they're not quite what I'm looking for, or he did this and I'm not sure what to do now, or you know what I mean? Like then we get to the next level of challenge. So if you want to then, you know, keep in touch and we can maybe even do another, you know, we'll have another chat about it a bit further down the line. That could be,
for sure. Yeah.
That could work. Because I think. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, just speaking candidly. I mean, at the moment, have you got anything sort of on the table as far as prospects are concerned? Are you talking to any guys? Is there anybody out there, or is it kind of just tumbleweed?
It's pretty much tumbleweeds. There is like one guy who messages me like maybe once a month. And it's a guy that my best, or not my best friend, but one of my really good friends had a show down in Florida during the Rockville festival that they have. And I really wanted to see him play with my favorite artist, Evanescence. So I went down there,
Evanescence,
saw him.
classic.
Yes, I love her to death. She got me through high school. Hi, got that heart here. And when I was there watching him play, my friend play, there was a guy who came up to me and said hello, and we got to talking, and he's like really into music and stuff. But he literally, like, every time he talks to me, he's like, do you want to come down to Florida? I'm like, no, I don't like Florida at all. It's like my least favorite state in the entire planet, and I never want to go there unless I absolutely have to. And the only reason I went down there was for my friend and because my favorite artist was going to be there. It was the only time I've ever gone down there voluntarily on my own, like ever.
You seem, I mean, why don't you like Florida? You seem quite, you know, kind of conservative. I mean, surely is it like, I thought everyone loves Florida.
True. Ron DeSantis, we love him as a governor. I think the thing for me was the humidity. It just killed me.
Oh, yeah.
I pretty much died.
Well, I mean, I was,
and then alligators, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was in Miami last year a few times, and I mean, I was there in August, and it was ridiculous. I mean, you just walk out of the you know, the apartment, and you're just soaking wet immediately. I mean, it's terrible, but yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, with all of these things, I mean, if you meet somebody and you gel and they live in a different state, or you can make that work. But ideally, we want to be meeting people closer to home. Ideally,
Yeah.
just for obvious reasons, because otherwise, then you get into a kind of long distance type thing, and that's not going to be any good either, really. So. At the same time, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you like the guy, I suppose it depends what his motivation was, though, as well. Because if he's saying, "Hey, come over to Florida," and then it's a bit of a hookup type situation, maybe that's,
Yeah,
that's not probably what you want, right? So,
no, don't want to add to my body count. Thank you very much. But
'Cause
also,
yeah.
yeah, and I don't know what his intentions are, and I'm just kind of like talking to him as a friend. I'm trying not to like raise his hopes or anything.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I think the biggest thing for me is like I do want to have a connection more than I don't care about distance as much. I mean, the guy that I almost married, I keep bringing him up, but it's a great example. I was living in an entirely different city when we were dating, and I loved it. Like I was able to call him every day. Like it wasn't like it was more him who wanted to like have me on the phone every day, but I was just as happy like long distance with him than I was as I was when we were together. Like it was just knowing that there was somebody that I had, there was somebody that I connect with, and that's somebody that I love. So it was just a wonderful. I don't care where I am in the world. It's like, yes, I have someone. It's great.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, because it feels like then there's that sort of like, oh, there's that, at least there's that security out there, and whatever.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't recommend long distance relationships. Certainly to. I mean, it can. It sounds like you were pretty chilled about it, but certainly for guys, it can fuck their head. It can mess their head up. They're like, oh shit, what's she doing, and all that kind of stuff. And also as well, because I mean, the other thing is as well, and we maybe we don't go into all of this because it will take too long. But I mean, it seems like when you're saying that, it seems like actually the introversion is coming through a little bit, because you're talking about actually meeting a partner and that leading to marriage and stuff like that. But that's going to be you are actually going to have to live with them, and you're going to have to do all of that stuff. Whereas it sounds like actually you're quite happy just being at home and doing a call occasionally, and you're like, oh great,
Yes.
So that might be another. I don't know. That's the final frontier, isn't it? But I guess that's further down the line.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great stuff. All right. Well, look. Thank you ever so much for calling in. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I hope I've been some small help. And please just keep in touch. And then look, if give us an update, and then maybe we can do another call and talk about, okay, so how's things progressed, and where do we get to the next stage?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, and I will definitely figure something out.
Good stuff.
I will talk to you soon.
I would say, as I say, the bottom line is you need to be meeting more people. You need to be meeting more guys, basically, because it's exactly the same for a guy. If a guy's sitting there and he wants a girlfriend, but he's not meeting anyone, or he's talking to one girl every 2 months, it's just not enough. You need to get some volume through the door. So I would explore all the avenues we've discussed. Start getting some guys where you're in contact, you're having maybe calls with them, you're chatting with them on, DM or WhatsApp or whatever. And then see where you are. Okay, right now, out of these, is there anybody here that could be a decent prospect for me? And then you've got to figure out, right, how do I move that forward?
Sounds amazing. Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, thanks ever so much for joining.
Thank you.
No worries. All right,
speak soon.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you go. So a little bit of live dating coaching there. I mean, like I said, I think ultimately, what is the answer? I mean, it's exactly the same as we would say to guys. It's a bit of a numbers game. It's certainly more of a numbers game for a dude than it is for a woman, because women tend to be more in demand. But it's very simple, isn't it? If you're not actually meeting people, if you're not it's like, as I said, it's like sales, right? So when you do sales, you want to have a big list of potential customers, and then you want to call all of that list, and then of that list, a bunch of them are probably going to say no, but some of them are going to sort of say, yeah, okay, maybe, and then you've got a shorter list, and then you follow up with those. And then of that list, maybe a few of them come through. Okay. It's very similar with the whole dating thing, right? You need to expose yourself. I don't mean in a naughty way, but you need to put yourself out there in front of as many people as possible. If you gel with them, you want to get contact details. You want to start chatting to them, having a conversation, and trying to arrange. I mean, I was advising her to do Zoom calls, to do a video call first, which I think is certainly if you're meeting online, I think is quite a good idea. That's worked pretty well for me in the recent past, just to see whether, firstly, is it a catfish? And secondly, do they seem to be cool? Then once you've done that, meeting them in real life. But you need to be getting the people through the door first, because if you're not, then with the best will in the world, it's just not going to happen for you, right? So I think simple advice, but I don't think there's any other way around it, really. Of course, the problem with somebody, because she is looking specifically for somebody who is, well, she's maybe pagan, but somebody who is Christian or at least religious, right? That kind of narrows the field down again, because it's not just, otherwise you've got the general advice, oh, well, go to a salsa class or go to like a local, like, I don't know, mountain climbing event or something like that, and maybe you'll meet somebody. But with this, she needs to be a bit more targeted, because the other factor is she wants to meet somebody who also has that religious belief. So, it's more challenging for her, but that's why she needs to, as I said, massive action. She needs to really get out there and explore all these different avenues to bring more people into her life. And I think for those of us who are kind of introverted, it is trickier, right? Because we don't always, I mean, the thing that screwed my dating life when I was younger was mainly the fact that I didn't really like going out, and I mean, I was fucking terrible socially. I was no good at it at all. Like, I was very, very shy. I was introverted. I liked my own company more anyway. The whole thing was a disaster. Plus I had no clue about women. Plus I had no riz. I mean, it was just, everything was wrong. I was the least likely person. I was the least likely person to be like a natural in that situation. But, amazingly, you can change, right? We are not fixed in one specific mode of being. We tend to think we are, I feel. We tend to think, okay, I am a shy person, I am an introverted person, I am a nervous person, I am an anxious person, or I am a confident person, or whatever it is. And we feel that that is fixed and that is just our identity. It really isn't. It's an aspect of our identity, but we are all multifarious beings. We can all step into different aspects of our personality, whether we're a man or a woman, right? So maybe my default state is I'm quite introverted, I like being alone, or I like to have alone time. But I can equally step into the part of me that likes to go out and meet a load of people and be the life and soul of the party for a period of time. I don't have to be that forever. I can then go home again and become the quiet introverted type once more. But for a period of time, I can be the party guy also. And that's what we all need to do, all right, with this being social stuff. We need to get into that mind frame and put ourselves out there. And remind ourselves, I don't have to be like this forever. It's not a life sentence. It's just for the next 4 hours while I'm at this meet and greet event. Don DeMarco saying lay off Florida. I'm surprised she didn't like Florida, actually, but it is humid out there, certainly. Talking on the phone every day would kill attraction over time. Yes. And she said he was pushing that, not her. That is, yeah, you've got to be a bit careful about that. I mean, long distance in general, I could see maybe somebody like her, if she's in a Christian relationship, maybe making it work for a period of time. If you guys are very much on the same page, it's like, right, okay, we're moving towards marriage and, whatever. Right? Maybe I could see that kind of working. But for me personally, I think a serious long distance relationship is problematic because, well, for various reasons, right? Partly because you're sitting there with your dick in your hand half the time thinking, well, I don't even know what she's doing. Is she out with Chad tonight? I mean, I've got no clue, which is not an ideal place to be. You can certainly have more casual things long distance, but I think when it gets serious, it's not great. Raging Tomato, I hit you up on a collab inquiry. Yes, absolutely. Sorry for that. I'll reply and maybe we can figure something out. We can do a call or something we can do a show like that next week, or we can talk about some aspects of this next week. Raging Tomato says he might lie. Is this about the Christianity thing? He might lie, sure, but she should be able to get a good feel based on how he answers the question. I think so. I mean, as I say, I think, and actually Myron used to prescribe this as well when you were meeting people online. He would say, do a video call with them, do like a FaceTime with them, so you can just get a sense of the person. I think it's not a complete substitute for real life meeting, but it's certainly a good pre-meet test to get a feeling of their vibe. It works pretty well. I can get a very good sense, I think, of somebody from just having a brief conversation with them. I mean, I did it. There was this girl that I met up recently, and you know, we did a couple of calls on WhatsApp, and I thought, yeah, she's cool. Then we meet up in real life, and you know, it was great in real life, and it felt like we'd already kind of met already, and yeah, it was fine. So and then I had actually I then had another one, and for various reasons it was slightly less successful. It wasn't a disaster, but it was slightly less successful. So that there are limitations to what you can learn on a video call, but I would say it's certainly better than nothing. So I would say if you're meeting people, particularly online, it's a good thing to do just to get a sense of that person. Very basic advice, but you know, it's worth. I mean, the worst thing about dating apps is you know, you traipse out, you go all the way out to the date, and then she turns up and she's catfished you. You know, her photos, or I guess this goes for women as well. You know, the photos were 10 years old, they look totally different, and as soon as you turn up, you just think, oh shit, this isn't gonna. I just know this isn't gonna fly. And then you know you've got to waste like an hour and a half, you know, with this person making small talk, blah blah blah. My friend James said he's much more calculated about it now. If they turn up and he's not feeling it, he just says, hey, listen, I've actually got to go to a meeting now, but here's $50, get a cab back, and I'll see you later. And he just sends them off, which is quite funny. I'm not quite cold-blooded enough to do that yet, but if you think about time being our most precious asset, then it makes a lot of sense that he does that. Any other questions? Anything else that you want to discuss off the back of that? We've had the icks, and we've had the dating dilemma there. So there's been a couple of interesting things I think we've covered today. If you've got any questions, put them into the chat. You can wait a couple of minutes and just see. Otherwise, we'll close up. There's like a tumbleweed across the chat. Anyone want to give me a $500 super chat? That would be nice as well. I'll just see if there was anything else in here. So actually, this was one. So Daniel Weatherman says, is there a Christian variant of the dark triad behavioral traits? Met some people like that, and they seem too strict and friendly to go full bad boy. The proverbial son of a preacher man. I mean, I think you probably could be a Christian person, you could be involved with the church, and you could be dark triad, but it would seem to be contrary to the tenets of Christianity. I just don't really, because the dark triad, apart from anything else, remember, the dark triad person is narcissistic, okay? They are essentially, you could say, vain. Well, vanity I think is a sin. I think vanity is one of the 7 deadly sins, or at least it was one of the ones that was gonna be included, even if it isn't actually one of the 7 deadly sins. So even on that, you know, it's just sort of being the dark triad bad boy and being a good practicing Christian just seem to be antithetical to one another. I just don't really see how they can properly align. I think there are people in whom they align, but those people, you could argue, are probably not very good Christians, right? So yeah, take from that what you will. But I think it's maybe it's not even so much about being the bad boy, though, right? Maybe it's more about just being... You could certainly be a Christian, you could be in that community, but you could be a little bit more mysterious, you could be a little bit more cool, you could be a little bit more sort of... You just need to get out of the Ned Flanders trap, I think. Raging Tomato said, you gave really great advice to the young lady, and I appreciate how kind and sensitive you were to her situation. Well, you know, I tried my best. I hope that I was able to offer some insight there. And then Don DeMarco said, there are definitely dark triad dudes in church. They just know how to play the part, of course. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, again, it's like, well, we know there's a lot of dark triad shit that happens in the church, but are those people good Christians? I guess that's the thing. Talked a lot about Christianity this week, which is kind of weird for me. SJ says, if I catfish 30 stone or on the 30 stone or on phone, I leave Aaron Clary advice. Is that what he says? I'm sure it is. You know, just get up and leave. I mean, I think, look, we're all taught to be super polite, and I've certainly fallen into this trap where you end up spending more time with somebody than really you should, because you kind of know. It happened to me a while back. I was in Mexico and I met this girl, and we met on an app, and she turned up, and she wasn't really. I wouldn't say she catfished me, but she didn't look real. She kind of looked different to her pictures, and as soon as she turned up, I kind of knew it wasn't on. And but I do feel bad because I am an English gentleman. Do you know what I mean? So I do also then feel bad about saying, "Oh, actually, fuck off," you know. So we did sit down, we had a couple of drinks, and it was fine. But you just know it's not going to go anywhere. And then something similar happened to me a while later. I think it was in Poland. Similar kind of thing. That woman actually turned out to be very interesting. We had actually a very interesting conversation about Polish politics, bizarrely, which you might not think is that, but it was actually very interesting. So there was some value there. But again, you know, unfortunately, and this is the beauty of cold approach, guys, right? This is the beauty. And this is why even saying to her, you know, getting to I said the dating app thing to her because I think it's an obvious thing that you should at least try. Because particularly in her situation, it's just it makes sense to at least explore that avenue. Having said that, meeting in real life is the real hack here, right? You know, you want to meet in real life because then you know what the vibe is like. There's none of this thinking like, oh, is she going to look like her pictures? Has she catfished me or any of that stuff? You know, you're going to know immediately what the vibe is. And you're in a much better position then. So this is why I would always advise guys to be going out there and doing some cold approach. And I would advise women to be getting out there, putting themselves out there, you know, not approaching necessarily, but certainly giving approach invitations to guys that they find attractive in their vicinity. So make it easier for those guys to come in and make the approach, right? Lessening their approach anxiety, making it more likely to be approached. And even if you want, as a woman, going in there and asking a question or something in order to get the conversation going, meeting in real life really is still the hack. Fewer and fewer people are doing it because we're all sitting behind our phones and screens and all that bollocks, but we should be, you know, and I still meet people in real life and it still works very well. And it's still by far the best way to meet people. And it kind of is the hack that gets you out of the whole dating app nonsense anyway, right? I mean, I'm not even on any dating apps, right? I don't even use it. There's one thing that I use sometimes, like a website, but other than that, there's no dating apps that I use. And, you know, I don't miss it. I haven't used them for years. It's just not, you know, it's just not my vibe. I'd rather meet people in real life. And that's worked very well for me for many years. And if you want to learn how, you need to get on our course, The Edge 3.0. I'm teaching with James Tusk. To find out more about it, it's a 10-week course where we teach you all aspects of, well, kind of how to be the bad boy, actually, but also how to optimize your hormones, how to become more masculine, reclaim your masculinity, and become the kind of attractive guy that women crave in 2024. We've got a host of expert speakers who are going to be coming into the live webinars that we're going to be doing twice a week over the 10 weeks as part of the course. And there's also the option to come with us to Colombia as well for some real real in-person training. So if that is of interest to you, and it absolutely bloody should be, then drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. Similarly, if you would like to come on the stream, if you're a woman or a man and you would like to come on the stream and you want to talk about your own particular dating situation, any problems that you're having or issues or challenges, then we can organize that as well. Drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. Please do subscribe to this channel. Channel's going really well. We'll be at 1,500 subscribers pretty soon. We're getting good views. We're monetized now. So everything's moving in the right direction. But please do subscribe if you haven't. Hit notifications. Share this video with friends or on social media. Spread the word. We want to get more people on board here and really blow this thing up. Leave a comment below and all of that good stuff. Give me a like as well. If you haven't given me a like, we want to get 21 likes in here at least now. If that's in your gift, please do give me a like. That would be really helpful. And yeah, and anything else that you would like to see discussed as well, leave a comment below and we can look at doing a show about it, right? I mean, I'm going to be doing lives. At the moment, we're doing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 2 p.m. UK time, which is 9 a.m. EST. That may shift as we go forward with this, but at the moment, that is the time. Those are the days. And then we're putting out videos every day as well. So, you know, there's a lot of content going out here. So, you know, just keep watching and you're going to be amazed by what we're going to be teaching you, what we're going to be bringing you. So Boundless Guardian says, that's cool. I'd love to come on. I'll email you for sure. That would be cool. Yes. Yeah, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can certainly have a chat about that. And then Grant Baker says, your guest should watch James Sexton's content to find out why she hasn't found what she's looking for in the modern Christian church. I thought that was the divorce lawyer. Or are you talking about someone else? Yeah, if anyone's interested in this whole Christian dating thing, by the way, watch the stream that I did on Tuesday with Pearl was here and Glenn Lawrence, and we were talking about Sovereign Bra, Chase, and his whole take on the Christ pill, and we were talking about some of these issues about dating in the church, and waiting till marriage and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, watch that if you haven't already. It was a good stream. We got into some interesting stuff over there. Okay, anyway, subscribe to the channel, give me a like, hit notifications, all of that good stuff. Share the video, and I'll see you guys again next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.